Good afternoon. This is Campbell McCrary, Vice President of Capital Markets here at Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Signature Resources Ltd. Signature trades on the TSXV as SGU Sierra Gulf Utah and as SGGTF on the QB in the US, Sierra Gulf Tango Foxtrot. We hope you'll enjoy today's program. It'll be available in replay mode. Do feel free to chat in your questions in the question pane of GoToWebinar or simply email them in. We really value what you think, and we'll ask the question in real time along with our Amvest questions. Amvest, of course, is again a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resources sector. And this is our disclaimer. Among many things, this call is most definitely for informational purposes only. Pleased to have with us today Robert Vallis, who is the President, Director, and CEO of Signature. He's an engineer by background and was most recently SVP of Corp Dev with Golden Star Resources, and before that, business development at Yamana. And he worked on some prominent transactions, which I was tangentially involved with myself. The $3.9 billion joint acquisition of Osisko and the $395 million acquisition of Extore for Cerro Moro, now Yamana. And then prior to Yamana, he was at Barrick for 15 years, and he was part of the $10.4 billion acquisition of Placer Dome. So tends to be at the right place at the right time. So with that, Robert, please take us through the Signature story, and we'll see you in about 15 or 20 minutes.
Thank you, Campbell. And thank you, everyone. Welcome. Signature Resources, we are a Canadian advanced exploration firm very much on the rise. Presently, we're entering 2021 in possession of our flagship asset, the Lingman Lake Project. That is a historic resource discovered in the 40s. That has certainly saw a lot of action with 28,000 meters drilled. There was development put in place. There's infrastructure of a shaft, 3 sublevels, and as well, this is all sitting within a land package that we've recently updated, sitting at over 200 square kilometers, or a strike length east-west of over 27, almost 30 kilometers. That historic resource is about 234,000 ounces right now at just under 7 grams. There's been a lot of interesting data come out of that, inclusive of event rays they put in that graded at over 28 grams per ton over 30 meters. Certainly, there's been a lot of work done since Signature has been formed, the land package consolidated, inclusive of a lot of geophysics and so forth. And right now, we're in possession of our own drill, about to commence a drilling campaign of 2,500 meters within about a week or so. And we're looking forward very much to that. And from that and continued efforts, we're on target and on goal to release our maiden resource within about 18 to 24 months. So a great start indeed. This slide, this is indicating certainly that right now, high quality, high grade gold assets, particularly in our region, are trading at about $100 EV per ounce. And on average, recent acquisitions are seeing that well over $200 per ounce. So lots of value potential. As I mentioned, there's been work done since the consolidation of the land package, most notably in 2018, prior to my joining. There was some work done to begin validating the historic resource. There was about 22 holes drilled. These are twin holes, as well as some re-assaying that was done on the existing historic core. Notable intercepts you'll see on the left-hand side of this slide is indicating some significant results, those of which actually exceeded the results from the holes they were twinning. So that really got our attention. I think what's most notable here is that this 234,000 ounces of historic resource is within a fairly tight package existing right at surface, about 650 meters in strike east-west, 300 meters north-south, and only 180 meters depth. That is outstanding for something that we know runs deep and wide, and so we're excited about that. Some historic efforts that were showing significant results. There was a hole drilled 240 meters depth. It's not a deep hole, but relative to the existing historic resource that it was, they hit a 1.5 meter intercept of 325 grams. And with the advantage of having the shaft and 3 sublevels developed historically, they were very much on their way to moving this into a producing mine. The 4 bulk samples that were obtained, 500 pounds each, all averaged 19 grams per ton. Of course, you compare that with the grade I mentioned previously of 6.8 grams per ton historic resource grade. It certainly indicates there's a lot of upside here. That with the note about the depth, that is something that is most notable and something that certainly attracted myself to this opportunity. When you see an ounce density very near surface and only within 180 meters from surface, coming straight from surface, if you look at ounces per vertical meter of depth as a measure of ounce currents and density, we're sitting at about 1,300 meters per ounce. Certainly with our focus to increase, at least at the start, the width of this deposit for proof of concept, we can see our ounce per meter starting to rise very rapidly, perhaps towards this rarefied territory that we typically refer to in this region. And as you can see in the lower part of the slide, a lot of the benchmarking of known discovered resources within the Red Lake camp, which of course we're in on the northern end of that geologic district. Those deposits are running well below 2 kilometers depth. So certainly compare that to the 180 we're at right now from surface. That's exciting. Important to point out that we are very much on a speculative curve right now. You know, with every bit of news that we start to deliver, we're certainly excited about bringing value to the shareholders. And with the new drilling campaign about to start in a week's time, we expect to continue to move up that curve. Exciting time for investors. Important about our team. Something that I believe is a vital pillar, if you will. I typically refer to people, the asset, and then the funding as those 3 core pillars. We certainly have the asset, but we've recently helped round out the team we have with our 4-person advisory board that has recently been announced, as well as the management team and our board of directors. We're checking all the boxes functionally, and we're certainly excited to have all of that experience, knowledge, and wisdom at the table to advance this opportunity rapidly. We are existing in the northwestern part of Ontario, in the northern aspect of the Red Lake Camp District, as I said. Nearest to us, we have the Sachiko First Nation, Red Sucker Lake First Nation, just across the Manitoba border, which we're near. Significant infrastructure around us. There's daily flights out of Sachiko and Red Sucker Lake. With that airport infrastructure, there's seasonal roads there. But it's important to point out that the Ministry of Ontario is working to advance, as we speak, the existing power lines from around Pickle Lake up towards these northern communities, up towards us. We expect to see that come to fruition over the next 2 to 3 years, which certainly is timely for us unlocking the resource as well. We tend to mob out of Winnipeg and find our way up and across the border into Sachiko Lake. And right now we're very, very occupied in getting our camp up and running, which was essentially there and ready to start drilling. Our land package, you may have seen news on this lately. We've added to it in a significant way, particularly to the south end of these claims, which will be evident in the next slide in terms of the geologic potential. But nevertheless, as I said at the start, this is a massive land package, almost 30 kilometers in strike length, and over 200 square kilometers, all of which we believe is extremely high potential land. So we're certainly excited to start unlocking that in the spring with the regional exploration program. Lingman Lake is here in the center of mass of, or just about, with these claims, within these patented claims you see. That is where we're focused. We're focused on the known and pushing from the known to the unknown, both with unlocking Lingman Lake, but also in parallel, as I mentioned, in the spring with our regional exploration package on this land package. Certainly of note, the geologic environment that we find ourselves in. The Lingman Lake project is here in this magenta box right around this exploration target number 6 that's denoted. We're within a package that is certainly high in potential and for a number of reasons. Most notably, this main contact here that you see in red, it denotes the contact between the main host mineralization and the mineralization that we're in towards the south here. This mineralization, if anyone's familiar with the Abitibi belt, you'll recognize is extremely similar in terms of the fault structuring and where the gold is occurring along these inflection points, not only with the faulting, but also with that main contact that we see here in red, and that's certainly where Lingman is. The geophysics that has been done, and Signature flew that in 2017 and 18, and continued to do surface work until early 2020, has certainly outlined a few high potential targets that you see here. Most notably to the west, this target number 2 was found to have historic trenching, blast trenching, and surface sampling, and the results that were found there were quite outstanding and indicative of that theory that these inflection points are certainly likely to bear some significant opportunity. So we're excited about unlocking this in parallel with Lingman starting in the spring. If we zoom in now to the Lingman Lake resource itself, we're looking southwest here. You'll see this 28,000 meters that I referred to. It's extensive. This isn't drilling that you typically see in terms of a step out fashion looking to discover something. This was really about bringing a known discovery into production. And that is the benefit of what we're standing on today in terms of the knowledge, the data of what we have. You can see the workings here from underground. And this sheer density of drilling certainly provides a good understanding of what we have and what it's likely to represent in terms of something that has a much larger scale, which we believe it does. Keeping in mind this is open in every direction, particularly to depth and on strike, as I mentioned at the start, we're only at 180 meters depth. These mesothermal deposits tend to run for kilometers, as I've already mentioned, to depth, as well as on strike. So we're very excited about that. Certainly as well, the bulk samples that came out of these workings adds that further knowledge in terms of the potential of this. It's important to point out that these mineralized zones are also situated in a fairly friendly manner if I put my mine engineering hat on and consider that it's steeply dipping. These high-grade zones range anywhere from 2 to 20 meters in thickness, and there's multiples of those, certainly, as you can see. It's bifurcated, at least from what we know right now, with this post-mineralized event of this diabase dike. So this came in after the formation of this of our mineralized zones. But with the drilling and discovery that was done in the 40s, they had mobbed the mill facilities and components up to site. They were ready to begin production or start developing for production before World War II hit. They ran out of money. It basically went into stasis. But just before that, you can see on the western side of that post-mineralized diabase dike structure here that they were starting to pick up and reestablish these zones that were already discovered.
Robert, your audio went out.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure where it went out.
I could hear him the whole time.
Okay, I guess we're having some web issues. Can you hear me?
Paolo?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I could hear him the whole time, Campbell, so it might be on your end.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
Hello.
Okay.
Me too.
I'll just, shall I continue then? Yes?
Yes, please.
Okay. The drilling that was finished or ended in the late 40s, you can see here towards the west, was not quite at the right dip angle, the right location. So this area, this whole western side is where we are focused now with our 2,500 meters, and likely will continue to reestablish these zones, pick up these things, add some pretty quick ounces at shallow depths, and essentially continue to prove the concept that this is something that's going to continue not only on strike, but to depth. Looking in plan view down at that oblique 3D view, this here, this 650 odd meters is where the historic resource is, shaft here and so forth. And you can see that to the west of that diabase dike is the zone that we're focused on drilling very shortly to reestablish what we hope will be the continuance of these zones that you see. And these are zones that are ranging, as I said, anywhere from 2 to 20 meters, in thickness. So it's exciting to progress with that. It's important to note too that to the west, it's not barren with data. As I already showed you, there's some drilling there that's giving us very good indications that this is continuing, same thicknesses, same grades as what I had showed you earlier on with the 2018 twin hole drilling. It's looking pretty exciting. I'll also point out here that the colors of these claims, the purple claims that the main resource is on, historic resource, is patented claims, and these green crown claims we also have permitted. So there's no barriers to us for drilling in the foreseeable future. So we're drill ready and excited to get going. I guess in summary, having come on board around mid-November, a few days post Paulo Lostrito, our chair, his appointment, we very rapidly raised more than was targeted, that $1 million that was targeted to get these 2,500 meters going, at least to start it. We secured $3 million fairly rapidly out of the gate, but also, bringing discipline to the table and rigor. We knew right away that we wanted to secure and get moving on moving our historic resource into a modern 43-101 compliant standard and base to start adding the new drilling to. That is very much underway as we speak. We're working to enhance our communication platform. We've signed on with Verify. We're about to be launching that soon, new website, and a number of other things. So there's a multi-pronged approach here to positioning the firm for success. And a big part of that right now, I must say, is attributable to Signature's founder, John O'Lever, who is leading the team as we speak at the site itself, bringing the camp operation to full fruition and drill ready. And we're days away from that. So we're quite excited that we've achieved that in the face of challenging temperatures, deep temperatures, as we know, has moved through over the last few weeks, as well as certainly the persistence of COVID. So we're very much excited about moving this rocket to the launch pad and getting going. Campbell?
Yeah, okay. Seems like some of us had an audio blackout and some of us didn't, maybe about a minute and a half there. But we will move on and kind of build our picture. I just wanted to bring on Paulo Lostrito, who is the chairman of Signature over there. And Paulo, you just want to maybe say a word or two, and then we'll dive into the Q&A and be there for any questions.
Yeah, certainly if anybody has any questions and did experience the blackout or the audio blackout, we're happy to backfill if anybody has any questions.
Please do. Yeah.
I'm echoing Robert's level of excitement here in terms of this asset. We feel like we've got enough information to tell us that we've got something, but in terms of scope, size, we're still at the very beginnings of trying to understand the potential of this, not only the Lingman specific asset, but the entire camp. It's wide open. For those of you who may remember me, I used to be a mining analyst, and I'm a grade junkie. Grade forgives a lot of sins that happen in the mining industry. Was an earlier follower of Lingman Lake Gold. I don't know if you remember back in 2004. And so it's that having that grade and that ability to find grade and have a high level of margin that makes you that much more attractive as a project and in the market, because you can weather the storms. So with that, I guess we can jump into the Q&A, and more than happy to answer some questions as a team.
So going back to that past drilling, how extensive is the past drilling? Does the historical resource contain all the past drilling? Who prepared the historical resource? Why can't you, or what do you need to do to kind of upgrade it to 43-101? What is missing? And I guess why did it sit on ice or stay kind of underground for so long? So what caused it to disappear from the world?
Paul, you want to take the last question first, and then we can speak to, filling the gaps?
Robert, your camera's off, so you want to pop that back on.
Sorry, that must have dropped off. Apologies.
Good.
Yeah. Paulo, did you hear that?
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, well, there was a number of questions there. In essence, the drilling historically that was done, it does and is contained within the historic resource, certainly. There was a reasonable data set for that, well preserved. It certainly is, because of its age and format, that it was critical for us to begin moving that into an environment not only where we can conduct more modern analysis, but certainly as well have it stand up to any level of scrutiny in terms of the rigor of the resource itself. From that, sorry, what were the other questions, Campbell?
Yeah, they were just related to the historic resource in the past drilling. What do you need to do to make it 43-101 compliant, and why did it sit on in the shelf for so long?
Right. So I'm not a resource estimator, but I do know that to get that into 43-101 compliance, it's really about completing the levels of due diligence on the asset. So that means sample re-assaying, again, randomly confirming parts of it. It's about moving it into an environment where the components that construct the resource are formed and defendable, that being block models and things that create the block model through wireframes, the drill hole database. All these things have to be up and within a standard. So there's a suite of things to be done to upgrade the quality of the data in terms of how it's hosted and how it's presented and how it's used to define a resource. Most of the reporting itself for the 43-101 standard was done actually in 2020. There was a restatement of the initial historic resource that was done in the 80s by another firm that held the asset at the time. But our QP at the time was involved with that as well, and continues to be. So it's really just continuing to advance that work to modern standards.
And to that end, Nordman Engineering has been contracted. So Rob has experience with them when he was over at Yamana. So to that end, we brought Nordman in to start the process of getting everything ready to how Robert said, so that all the new drill data that we're going to be generating here in the next 10, 15 days is going to start populating this new platform. And why is it that it was, this thing was originally drilled in the 1940s, and you can see from the drilling that they were drilling to put it into production. They weren't drilling it for the way we look at things
That's right.
today, is understanding the scope of the project and then going after it. Back in the 40s, if you had enough to get started, you'd start, and then if you started getting a better understanding of it, you would expand, and you just kind of do things in a stepwise fashion. Today, because it costs so much more money and the permitting process is longer, you have to understand the scope of a project earlier on. And are we just looking at a very small section of a much bigger deposit? It's entirely possible, but we're going to put the truth machine on it and figure it out.
That's right. The fact that we're standing, and this is something you always look for, the more you've de-risked, the more you understand what you've discovered, the better. The fact that a lot of that work was done through the drilling, as dense as it is, through the underground development and bulk sampling, that gave the level of confidence, as Paulo pointed out, to have them begin to move towards production is a significant, milestone to hit in terms of working with the discovery. So certainly that puts us in the advanced category for exploration and growth of this.
Do you believe there will be any open pit components to an updated resource mixed with an underground component?
I'll hesitate to speculate about extraction at this point, but if I put my mining engineering hat back on, I can certainly say that any resource that commences from surface with the ounce density that we have, at least with the historic resource thus far, and that we expect to continue to grow, would almost certainly have at least a starter pit type component to perhaps a much larger, longer mine life underground operation. We know this is a mesothermal deposit, and therefore, as I alluded, or at least demonstrated earlier in the presentation, that this thing will run to depth most likely and to width. A starter pit would be a wise choice to start. That tells me that, this is a project, Lingman Lake, that has the potential to be a very high rate of return project. It's something that is appealing to all gold producers. I can certainly attest to
Rob,
that.
if you pull up the plan view of the deposit, again, just to add to what you've just said. So a few of you probably have listened to the Crestcat call that was done on YouTube last Friday. And if you haven't, I encourage you to look at it. There's a quartz feldspar porphyry that's intermingled with these shear-hosted mineralized zones. These are not veins. We're not chasing quartz. There is quartz flooding, but the importance of having that QFP intermingled with the zones that suggest to us that it may be part of the driver that causes several pulses of mineralization. You'll note there to the north part of that patented claim, and Rob, you might want to move your mouse over it. That quartz feldspar porphyry was identified at surface. There's no drilling there. So there's real chance that we might have a few more parallel sheets to the north and potentially to the south. And does that mean we're in fact...
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, does that mean we're actually looking at a small open pit? Are we looking at a much larger open pit? All of these things are possibilities that we're just starting to try and figure out. But in order to do that, we've got to drill. And we're going to go from known to unknown. 80% of our focus is on going from known to unknown. 20% of our focus is testing these regional targets to the west, because too often over the course of my career and Rob's career, we've seen companies get so fixated on a small part of the project that they miss the forest for the trees. And we're not going to make that same mistake here. We're going to focus on trying to deliver shareholder value by growing this thing rapidly in all directions, but also test some regional ideas as well.
All within the capsule of quality and discipline. You know, it's something we're focused on, is not cutting corners to get to some target in terms of a goal. But these are great problems to have. You know, I've been speaking thus far about depth and strike length, but as Paulo rightly points out, particularly with this QFP package discovered to the north end of the known resource, this could be much wider. You know, so width certainly becomes more friendly for open pit, as Paulo rightly points out. But it's an exciting start point. The key thing that brought me to this is to see something not only with the quality of asset, but to know that you've got something that is this drill ready. Literally, you know, this can take as many drills as you can throw at it, not only to expand the strike, which we're focused on to start, but to go to depth, to go to width. This thing is drill ready in a way that's quite rare. I'm very excited about that.
How are the average, what are the average thickness of the mineralized zones, cutoff grade, and average grade of the historical resource?
These zones we see here, denoted in red, average anywhere, so they pinch and swell, and that's part of the discovery process we're going through, is how much they pinch and swell. But what we do know from the historic resource is that it ranges anywhere from 2 to 20 meters thick, these lines. So don't be fooled by the fact they look like little skinny red lines on this map. They're quite large. And you know, I'm pointing out here that in this QFP package, right here next to the Q, where I'm pointing on the screen, if you can see it, is where they drilled that vent raise, that 30 meter deep, a 1 meter wide vent raise that averaged 28 grams per ton outside of these gold zones. So it's something else. Right now, the cutoff grade is at 2.5 grams per ton. Believe certainly as this grows and goes to depth, that cutoff grade would be updated and certainly tested across a range of cutoff grades. So we're quite cognizant of that, to be able to demonstrate that this is something ultimately that can withstand you know, a range of cutoff grades and cost structures.
Okay, Gabe?
Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. Can you just remind us current cash position today?
Current cash position is right around 3 million. That is certainly more than we needed to get the drill program at 2,500 meters off the ground. But it's, as we already indicated, it's allowing us to move many other chess pieces in position with Verify and Nordman and so forth. So it's allowed us as well to be fully funded right now for this drill campaign. That should
Great.
take us into, just to add to that, I'm sorry, just to give you that clarity. The drilling should take about a month and a half, probably over 2 months by the time all the assays trickle through. And we're funded to see our way right through that well into the spring.
Great. So we'll expect some news out in the next quarter, let's call it.
Yeah, I would say in weeks even.
Okay, great. And then in terms of just the past drilling, so how many meters were drilled historically, and then does the historical resource contain all of that drilling?
Short answer is 28,000 meters of drilling, and the resource contains about 75% of that drilling. As I indicated, there is a fair amount of drilling over here to the west side, below this, you know, picked up west zone that is actually in the north zone, that they were just missing things. So they did sink some meters where it didn't hit. Certainly over here as well, holes that were dipped to the wrong angle, missed some spots, but overall it's about 75 to 80% of those drilled meters are within the historic resource that's here.
Got it. And then is this 2,500 meter program focused on twinning, or what's the main focus of the program?
No, this is discovery step out. So we're starting here on the westmost immediate side of the diabase dike post-mineralized event here, and moving west within this ellipse that you see. So we expect that the west zone will continue towards the north, and we're already getting indications from some sampling that it's inflecting towards the north, which further strengthens our hypothesis that this is following that that big red contact I showed you in a previous slide that's actually beginning to move northwest. And more importantly, we're picking up the other zones to the south. I should point out that on the immediate side of the diabase dike to the west here, we do have some drill holes already that were done in 2018 as part of the twinning program, but they actually decided to poke a few here to see. So they're not really twin holes. But in the slide I showed you earlier, those were holes 18-1 and 18-2 with significant intercepts, indicating that this central and south zone is continuing. So we know it's very high potential here. That's where we're focused right now. And it's about to 180 to 200 meters depth as well.
Got it. And then in terms of the sort of entire property area that you've sort of detailed, explored, or done some work on, what how much of the property have you done work on in terms of exploration, and what's left?
Looking at this slide here on the screen, this Lingman Lake is right here in this purple square. There's about 20 kilometers to the west here that we're very focused on starting in the spring. But you can see this geomagnetics, these geophysics that you see on the screen were done in 2018, 19, and 20, as well as surface sampling and other things. So it's really the tip of the iceberg of work that we've done on these regional claims, but certainly enough to know that what we have is substantive. That is why we're focused. As Paulo said, that 80-20 rule, we're 80% focused on Lingman, building that out, but also 20% of our effort and budgeting towards starting to layer more data onto this understanding. So we'll be running more geophysics, more surface sampling campaigns throughout this year, starting in the spring. So not a lot of data in hand, but enough to know that this entire land package that we hold and have recently expanded to is deserving of all that work. So looking forward to kicking that off in the spring.
Yeah, we have our reasons as to why we expanded the land package. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Adding to that, if I may, adding to that question, coming from senior gold producers, the number one thing you look for is district level potential, meaning potential to have a number of gold discoveries that are mineable within a fairly large land package or sphere around centralized infrastructure, such as milling facilities and so forth. If we just look at 3, 4, and 6 targets here that our guys have indicated thus far from the data we have, that 3, 4, and 6 represents essentially the size of the entire Timmins camp. So you get a sense of scale and potential for building out district potential here, and that is a big reason why we're excited about this.
Thank you. Can you just touch on infrastructure in the area and what that looks like in terms of power?
Sure. I had noted in previous slides that the two, and I'll just go back to this location slide here, the two First Nation communities that we have to the east and west of us, is we are about 50 kilometers from the Manitoba border as the crow flies. In Sachiko and Red Sucker, there are airport facilities with daily flights south of Winnipeg, Thunder Bay, and Red Lake. There is temporary roads that run, or seasonal roads, to Red Sucker Lake and Sachiko Lake, ice roads, if you will. They're working on a permanent road now going to Red Sucker Lake. The power runs all the way up to Red Sucker Lake, but it's only about as far as Pickle Lake on the Ontario side here. But as I mentioned, the government is working with First Nations communities to expand actively right now the power up to the north, and we'll expect to see that in place over the next 2 to 3 years if all continues on schedule the way it is. So between flight access, temporary and permanent roads in the vicinity, and power, we're looking pretty good for infrastructure.
Great. And just my last question is in terms of analogs, what would you say this is analogous to? The deposit.
You know, geologically, this deposit is not as beaten up and twisted over and pretzeled as a lot of the geology that you see down here in the southern Red Lake Geologic District. We have a geologic environment that's less abused, if you will, and because of that, it compares to those that are not quite in, you know, as abused as you've seen Red Lake. So comparing to that, I think it compares quite well to the Hemlo camp that I worked at personally for nearly 8 years. Mostly because I'm not saying it's you know the 2-ounce grade that Hemlo saw in its heyday, but the steep dipping lenticular consistent structure. It's, as Paulo pointed out earlier, these aren't discrete quartz veins that we're chasing. It's a mineralized flood zone. So when you look at the rock, it's all the same color. That's indicative of Hemlo. I think there's other type deposits throughout the Timmins and Kirkland Lake that are similar as well. But those are the ones that come to mind.
My hope is that we're going to have several different types here. You know, our team is experienced with these Archean greenstone hosted type deposits. There's a lot of elements that look like a lot of different stories in Timmins and Kirkland Lake. But what we're chasing right now at Lingman proper, I would echo what Rob's saying, but there's other things that we're looking at as well.
Yeah.
So it's not fair to pigeonhole this just yet because we're still in the data collection phase.
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, we know it's mostly in the mesothermal deposit box, but as Paulo said, you know, how big, what are the extents of this? That's what we're poised to answer.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Artie?
Thank you. So you acquired the project at 2013. I wonder how big it was at that time and how big is the claims area right now, based on what you guys are expanding the project area?
I don't have a you know a good chronological answer to that, but I will say that these patented claims here, the purple, were likely the first held claims that were collected by our founder around 2013, and then subsequent claims and packages of crowned land claims were added in this green that you can see over time. And then, of course, towards the end of this year, into this year, we've added these additional claims to the south for the reasons we spoke of the regional potential we see here, the high regional potential. But it was mostly around these claims that were held. In the 40s, that was essentially it as well. But there were more of these claims held and consolidated, but not nearly as big as what we have. Through time, they became fragmented, moved into receivership, in private holdings. It was a mess until our founder, who was aware of it historically, moved in and with his own funds, for a great degree of it, worked to consolidate these claims and really position Signature for where it's ultimately is today. And today we hold about 200 square kilometers of land. It's about, I think, somewhere around 20,000 hectares. So we're excited about that.
Thank you. What are the conditions in underground, and have you sampled the underground?
The conditions underground are such that they're inaccessible. They're flooded. They're historic. They haven't been accessed since, probably the 60s, between the 40s and 60s when they were in the 40s when they were put in. It doesn't mean, though, that in time, depending on how this begins to unlock, and we're certainly excited about how we think it will, it doesn't mean that we might not consider going back into these workings. It wouldn't take that much work to dewater these workings and bring them to modern safety compliance standards to get back in to handle mechanized equipment and so forth, and reestablish underground drilling, bulk sampling, and so forth. I see that more towards the latter stages of us building out this resource. I think, at the start, the drilling is certainly going to tell us a lot. As you can see, each drill hole does multiple duty. It's not just hitting one zone, it's hitting multiple zones. It's hitting these mineralized packages that Paulo pointed out. So we're going to get a lot of work duty through just drilling before we get underground to really refine it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, do you think those are just to confirm that the old mined out areas and the potential new areas are continuous in terms of mineralization?
We already know that this historic resource and the mineralized zones identified are continuous. We know that. The development that went underground confirmed that in the 40s and 50s. Actually, it was mostly in the 40s. That it's important to clarify as well. This was on the cusp of moving to production. This is and has never been a producing gold mine. It was in a precarious situation where it was ready to begin production, but they ran out of money. They ran into World War II. And I think because of their geologic location at the time, it was considered more remote than what was happening in the Abitibi in Timmins and Kirkland Lake discoveries at that time, and nearer to infrastructure, cheaper to get mines up and running. This one had more of a challenge when it came to that. So all that work done in hand, but hasn't produced. The only thing that came out in any bulk way were 500-ton bulk samples. As I said, all averaged 19 grams per ton.
No tailings in the project area at all.
There is waste on surface near the shaft. Those were tested several years back by the ministry when it was in between ownerships, and confirmed that it's non-acid generating. So it's low PAG is what they call
waste. It's waste. It's not tailings.
It's waste. It's not ore. Tailings infers that there's been ore processed, and that's the byproduct. No tailings, no production has occurred on this site. We have waste from the development, as Paulo points out, on surface, confirmed to be non-acid generating. Also confirmed that it's actually self-buffering, which is good to know.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Campbell?
Sure. The share consolidation, a lot of people are wanting to hear about that. Has it been approved? When might it be approved, if so? And what was the thinking behind it?
I'll take a shot and then hand it to Paulo. In essence, the short answer is yes, that was voted upon. Yes, it was approved for up to a 5-to-1 share consolidation. But as I'll have Paulo expound on, this is about aiding Signature Resources to grow. We would only consider such a thing if it was able to remove a barrier to significant further investment and growth of our activities. Paulo?
Yeah, so I get why it's a bit of a hot topic, because in the past, when you've seen these types of consolidations, there's a tendency for the stock to drift and then kind of And that's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is create a positive feedback loop in that we make existing shareholders and future shareholders money, right? At the end of the day, what do investors want? They want to buy something at 20 cents and sell it for multiples of that. And so to that end, if in the event that we get to a point where either one, index inclusion, or two, serious institutional players that are writing big checks require that as part of their investment, then that's when we would be able to pull on that lever. But we just didn't want to be in a position whereby we're drilling, we're producing these great results, and then we didn't have that arrow in our quiver. And so we'll do it when the time is right. But rest assured to everyone on this call and anyone listening in on the replay, we're focused on trying to make people money here. And in order to do that, we've got to do things strategically. And, Rob and the team have done a fantastic job. We're moving, several initiatives in parallel for the sole reason that we're trying to make people believe that we're moving this thing as fast as possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it is something we inherited, but it's recognized as not really a challenge for us until it becomes a challenge, as Paulo's outlined. So, we continue the course in a disciplined manner to grow this opportunity, but we want to make sure we have every opportunity to do so in as least amount of barriers as possible.
Yep, and good to get it done now and over with, and a year or two from now. So that's my opinion. Current budget for drilling again, next couple of years. You were able to drill as much as you wanted to, and then you're thinking behind controlling excessive dilution and having that whole art of delivering value, but then having it being taken away by the share count. How are you going to handle that?
I think that comes from ultimately the quality of the asset, Campbell. When we're in a situation, which we are, where every meter can conceivably bring a significant amount of ounces and growth to the resource, the more ounces we bring to the table with fewer meters, then that means certainly a least amount of or a lower level of investor dollars that have to be pumped into the ground to return those ounces and grow the resource.
You're an engineer by background, and this is a drilling and geology story. What are your strengths and weaknesses with that dynamic?
Well, I'm a team leader and a team player, Campbell. First and foremost, I recognize and thrive when others are working at their best. Surrounding yourself with people that can do that is absolutely key. We've done that. We have that team. So I'll rely on the expertise of a geologist and a geologic team in this phase, certainly as we move through. I'm not a geologist, but I'm certainly appreciate what they're going through technically and what we're embarking on and what it means. I can certainly see the future and the permutations of opportunities and challenges that mining brings when you're unlocking a deposit. But chiefly, it's ensuring that you've got a high-performing, high-quality team, cross-functional, and we have that. So we're excited to let that loose very shortly.
And I would,
Campbell, if I could interject as well, as an analyst, when you're looking at CEOs, the perfect CEO is part MBA, part engineer, and part geologist, right? Or capital markets, understanding the development side of things, and then the capital market side. So we've got an awesome geologist in Walter, but he's augmented by John Hayes, who was a former analyst at BMO, senior analyst at BMO, but he's got geology experience. Scott, who's a PhD geologist, and so we've got the geology side down pat. from an engineering standpoint, we've brought on Ricardo. We've got Robert, who, you know, you're talking to a blue chip guy from Barrick and Yamana. And then from a capital markets side of things, you've got between John, myself, Rob, you know, we think we've got all those bases covered at infinitum.
I'm going to add one piece to that pie. Our founder, John Oliver, this man is exceptional in terms of his ability to take an opportunity that is nothing on the ground and bring it into a fully functioning, high performance, you know, exploration camp. That is what he is doing and is nearly done for us as we speak. So I'm very proud of that, and I'll say why. The chief reason is that, you know, the learnings from Monument Bay and working from other with other deposits in this region is keeping your costs as low as possible, being as efficient as possible. So we've been focused on that right out of the gate. What we're doing at camp is injecting efficiency so that with the support of the markets, what we hope will be growth. Our camp facilities, our ability to scale and maintain an economy of scale with low cost is a key focus. We don't want to be tripping over ourselves and realizing we didn't think about that from the start. So we're quality right from the go, and you know, we're poised to grow and grow effectively with, you know, efficiency. Sorry, Paulo.
It behooves me to also highlight that, you know, attracting someone like Dan Danbow on the advisory board as well, from a corporate governance perspective. Dan was a senior portfolio manager at USAA, which was the pension fund for the US Air Force. You know, he was, I think he ran a $4 billion US fund there, invested heavily in the gold space, and so having someone like Dan on the team as well helps elevate how we do things in a fashion that's in the best interest of all stakeholders.
Okay. Last question. Why buy now? Or tomorrow morning, rather.
Paulo said it. We're focused on delivering value to shareholders. The sooner you get in, the sooner you're going to be part of that that rocket leaving the launch pad. And we're excited about that. We've already returned a good return to our investors that's come on board with us as we joined and are getting positioned to really take off at the launch pad. But this is an exciting time. We don't foresee that we'll be anytime soon slacking off on continuing to deliver good quality results to the street. So obviously, with any investment, the sooner you get in, the higher return you can see.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll take a stab at that, Campbell, as well, and this definitely goes into the forward-looking statement box.
Yeah.
You know, with a mesothermal system, there's a good chance that this thing grows at depth. Okay, and usually the limiting factor in the mesothermal system is grade. So if you don't have the grade and you don't have the ounce density, you can't push the mine to depth. So if you take our current 1,300 ounces per vertical meter and push it to the 2 kilometer mark, that gives you a number. If you then suggest that, you know, that's trading at $100 an ounce because it's in that high grade camp, that gives you a number. That's the reason why investors, if they believe in those numbers, should get involved now. That does not include the upside that we could see expanding this further to the west. That does not include the upside that we see by expanding it laterally, i.e., you know, to the north and potentially to the south. That does not include all the other targets that we've identified on the project, including the one to the northwest, and it doesn't include the recently staked land package to the south, and we have our reasons as to why we did that.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. When you log out, we'll be asking for feedback. Please share a few lines. It'll get to Robert and Paolo, and replay will be available in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/webinars. And please follow Signature Resources on the usual social media places. And we look forward to updating you again on the story in short order. If you'd like a one-on-one and you feel you're up to it, please reach out, and we'd be happy to introduce you more intimately. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.